Hi there, students. Shrink. To shrink as a verb, or also a shrink as a noun. Or also, actually, I'm going to look at another noun as well, shrinkage, which is a business word. Okay, to shrink means to become smaller, or to make something smaller. So, I shrank my jeans in the washing machine. My jeans shrank. So notice, I shrank my jeans, or my jeans shrank. You can use it with both subjects. If you wash something at too high a temperature, it will shrink. The profits of the company are shrinking. Last year they shrank significantly because the market is shrinking. So to shrink, to decrease, to lessen, to reduce, to make smaller. You can also use to shrink away from, to shrink from, to move away from something because you are frightened. So the dog shrank behind my legs when the lion appeared. We shouldn't shrink away from doing the things that we really must do. Okay, so to be frightened of doing them. Yeah, we shouldn't shrink from doing them. And then a shrink. A shrink is a word that we use to mean a psychiatrist. So I see my shrink every week. I need to talk to a shrink. Yeah, I think the idea is to shrink, make smaller your ego. I think that's the idea. So to shrink, to become smaller, to make something smaller. So the audience for this television program has shrunk over the last few months. If you put these in the sun, they will shrink. They will get smaller. And then to shrink away from something, to move away from something unpleasant or frightening. Yeah. He shrank away from the violence that was happening. And then you can shrink from something, you avoid it. Don't shrink from your responsibility. It's not the right thing to do. Okay? So, to shrink. Notice this is an irregular verb. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. So make sure you use it properly like that. Okay, so to shrink, to get smaller, to become more compacted. So yeah, my jeans shrunk. To lose substance or weight. I'm going on diet to try to shrink my size. To lessen in value. The value of houses has shrunk over the last year. It has dwindled. It's got smaller. To shrink away from, to recoil instinctively, to move back because something's horrible or painful. And then to refrain, to hold oneself back. Don't shrink from telling the truth. Yeah, it's something that you must do. And then this verb shrinkage, which I mentioned at the beginning. Shrinkage is a business word. It's talking about your stock, and stock always suffers shrinkage because people steal it, because some of the items get broken, some of them get lost. So you buy 1,000 units, but at the end of the day you can only probably sell 900 due to shrinkage. Yeah, shrinkage because people are stealing them, shrinkage because some of them get broken, maybe shrinkage because some of them have been badly made and you just can't sell them. Okay, and then this shrink, a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Okay, so to contract, to shrink, to condense, to compress, to constrict, to deflate. Yeah? Okay, so to get smaller, to condense. Do you think you could shrink all of his speech into one short report? And then to shrink from, to shrink away from, to flinch, to recoil, to wince, yeah? To flinch away from something. Okay, so if you cook meat, it shrinks, yeah? You have to remember that a lot of it is water, and when the water comes out, it shrinks. So to shrink, to become or to appear smaller. The mountains shrank into the distance as we cycled away. Yeah, they became apparently smaller. The sun got higher and higher, and the shadows shrank. They got smaller. To shrink, to become reduced in the amount or in the value, to dwindle. So inflation will cause your savings to shrink. The market is shrinking. To shrink away, to move back in fear. He shrank back against the wall when he saw the blood, okay? And then to show reluctance to do something, to hesitate, yeah? I shrink from telling him that things are bad because he gets so angry if you criticize him. Yeah, he shrank from the sight of the blood. He shrank at the idea of killing an animal. Okay, yeah. He shrank at the idea that all the meat he eats was actually once a live animal. So cloth definitely shrinks if you wash it. Meat shrinks if you cook it. Yeah? And then to shrink from danger, to move back from, to move away from. So, to shrink, to decrease, to dwindle, to lessen, to grow smaller, to contract, to diminish, to fall off. Yeah? And then to shrink back from something, to cringe, to recoil, to withdraw, to shy away from, to cower. Yeah? He shrank into the corner. Okay? And that's the other idea of to shrink. And then we have this shrinkage, the loss of merchandise through theft, spoilage, obsolescence, or other things. Okay, so shrink, to shrink, shrink, shrank, shrunk. How formal is this? So to shrink is a neutral verb, 5 informality, use it anywhere. Shrinkage is a business word, I'd probably give it a 6 informality. And a shrink as a psychiatrist, I would give this a 4 informality. It's an informal slang phrase. More formally use a psychiatrist, yeah? A doctor for the head, okay? So, don't shrink from studying English every day. So, it comes from, Old English, Middle English shrinken, which actually comes from a Proto-Germanic word, skimsquana. Okay, we also actually have a Dutch cognate, shrinken, to shrink. Okay, so to shrink. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. To shrink.